One more time. It's been a long time since I've been able to play that solo. I am so glad to be back in the offices of Essential Dynamics. This, I'd forgotten what it was called. I thought it was Crucial Actions, Derek. I wasn't sure it was what it was called. I knew it was something important.
Hey,
Now I
well,
remember.
read its essential dynamics, and if you go back a few episodes, you can hear that our AI personality is called Eddie,
Eddie. How
right?
cool. Like EDDIE.
Essential dynamics,
Essential Dynamics.
EDY.
EDY Eddie.
Yeah.
Ah, cool. He's
Okay,
a cool
so
guy.
you're this is it's today, and you're here at Essential Dynamics, Reed. So
I am, and I'm very
thank you for
happy to
coming.
follow up on our last conversation where you said some very interesting things that I want to hear again. And I think we should get into applications now since we're talking about business. But last time we discussed at length the difference between Crux and Climax. And I found the conversation very inspiring. And one of the things you said that really struck me, Derek, was that we all live in unresolved tension. Let's start there, and then I'm going to ask you to go the distance with me, and let's apply it to business.
Okay.
So, tell me, we all live in unresolved tension. How do you mean that?
Well, tension sounds like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, it does.
Um, and so here's an example of why it's not a bad thing. So a couple of episodes ago, I talked about my backpacking trip.
Just a couple of episodes ago, I thought you've been doing that for years.
Yeah. The stories come out. So
Okay.
here's the thing. It's quite nice when you're in the backcountry to have a tent.
Yeah.
And I know people say, oh, well, you rough it, you sleep in a tent. Well, I've also slept not in a tent,
Yes.
or I've laid on the ground and camped under the stars. And let me tell you, a tent is much
better.
more comfortable. How do tents work? And we have to watch the play on words here, but tents work with tension, which are not the same word, not the same root. But you put a pole up to prop up the fabric, and then you tie a line out to a stake, which you pound into the ground. And you do it the same on the other side, and all that stuff is in tension, and it holds it up.
I see.
And if you were trying to do that with stretchy fabric and using spaghetti noodles instead of cord to tie if there's no tension, it falls apart. So
that sounds like the hikes I've been on.
So tension, we create things with tension. If you design a bridge, you design it for tension. Right?
Okay, so tension can be a necessary factor.
Tension is a necessary factor.
Why is it unresolved?
Why is it unresolved? Because in our model, because you're trying to accomplish different things that you can't accomplish at the same time. For example, let's say you are a young person and the tension you're feeling right now is like a financial crutch. And you make some money on your paycheck, and the tension is, do I go out and party and spend this money? Or do I save it so that I can, for example, make a down payment on a house? And saving for a down payment on a house is no fun.
Yeah.
Going out with your friends is fun.
Mm-hmm.
But if you turn away some short-term gains, at some point you can accomplish something that's more valuable to you. And so there's that kind of tension. Or there might be the tension where you're working with someone, and if they knew something, they would be able to have a better life, but they would have to confront a hard truth.
Yeah, they would come back to that. Things are being that you admire the difficult is what I've heard you say. Not you say, but that's what I've taken away from some of your conversations. Is your previous episodes have said embrace the hard.
Well, here's the thing: is it's going to be hard.
Life is going to be hard too.
Life is going to be hard. So let's figure out the most productive way to get through hard things. So we were talking about type 1 and type 2 fun. Type 1 fun is no effort, it's just fun. Type 2 fun is it's hard work. In the moment, you're not even sure if you're having fun. And then afterwards, you're like, wow, that was great. Let's do it again. And so there's that kind of tension. There's the tension of trying to figure out if this important thing is more important than that important thing.
Oh, when two important things come into conflict.
Yeah. And sometimes that's, for the greater good or your own sort of, personal advantage. Sometimes it actually is between right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find the whole area fascinating. I don't think we need to go out and look for hard things. But I think if we understand the real tensions involved, that we can be more intentional, we can make better decisions. And when you think about organizations that are a bunch of people together trying to accomplish something, it's just full of tensions, and we don't really have good ways of talking about it. And so all kinds of potential gets left behind when we don't figure out what to do with
well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about where does a crux happen in business?
So if you think about the conversations that we had, from literature and film and stuff like that last time, sometimes they're forced upon the protagonist, and things just close in, and then they have to make a decision, and that happens in business too. But a lot of times in business, it's perfectly acceptable and fine for us to kind of limp along, or to carry along oblivious to the potential that we have, and not do something because it's a little bit out there and hard, and or maybe we're not even paying attention. So I have one really good example of this. I've read about it. I read Andy Grove's book, Only the Paranoid Survive. Andy Grove was at Intel,
okay,
the computer chip company.
I think I've heard something about that.
Yeah, it's inside, and I've heard other people talk about it, read about it. So anyway, this is a situation, and I probably will have the years wrong. It's probably the late 70s, and Intel was making memory chips.
Oh.
So memory chips is what we store files on, and these memory chips were going into mini computers, not laptops and stuff back then. So they were making memory chips, and they were noticing that they were dealing with competition from Japan, and so they were winning less contracts, and the pricing was less. They were still making money, but they could see if they looked out that they were not going to be able to protect their position making memory chips. And so there's a conversation between Gordon Moore and Andy Grove, and they talked to each other and said, if the board really knew what was going on, they would fire us. And they would bring in somebody new to take this company in a new direction. Because even though we're fine now, we can see how this is going to end.
It's going to collapse.
So the crux conversation was, what if we were the new guys? Why don't we fire ourselves, in the sense that we have to get out of this business? So that means we have to admit that we're in a business with a failing business model. We have to basically invest all of our earnings in unproven technology so that we can learn how to make integrated circuits instead of memory chips. And so they bet the farm on this new business model. That the crux of that was that one conversation in the office, which they recount so many times because they remember it, because and the climax was when Intel started selling microprocessors, integrated circuits. And it took years before they were back in the position that they had been before in terms of dominating memory chips.
So did they get fired by the board? How
No,
did
they
the
went.
board respond? They went
To the
distance?
board and said that we have to stop this business. We have to start this one. And the board, they convinced the board.
That's astonishing, isn't it?
Right. And so many times when that opportunity presents itself to business leaders, either at the executive level or the board level, the realization doesn't come, or it gets pushed away, and we update the strategic plan and we carry on. And I'll give you an example of that it's maybe a little bit closer to home, which I think I've described on the podcast, and that is Kodak.
Oh, yes, we've talked about Kodak before.
We've talked about Kodak, yeah. So the reason that I know about Kodak is Kodak. When I was at Microland, Kodak bought one of our customers, and they bought one of our customers to try and solve the problem which they created for themselves when they invented digital photography. When they were in the photographic film and photographic paper business, and invented digital photography, and then sort of put the signed the death warrant for the photographic film business, and then didn't accept it, where that would go. And so they fought to hang on to photographic film. And the company actually, I wasn't sure, but I looked it up. The company actually failed.
Yeah.
And was wound up.
Yeah.
So Intel was facing the same kind of technological obsolescence. And they said, we're going to get ourselves out of this and get into something new. Kodak said, we're going to hang on.
Well, not to defend, I guess I am defending, but you have to understand that at that time, Kodak's ultimate failure, or folding the shop, it was unthinkable. It was such a big company, and its brand name was so ubiquitous. Everybody in the world knew what Kodak was, and Paul Simon wrote a song.
That's right.
Called Kodachrome, and everybody got it.
when I lived in Seoul, Korea in 1980, there were small photography shops everywhere.
Really?
And they all had a big Kodak cutout. Might have been a girl in a swimsuit. I don't really remember.
No, that wouldn't be paramount in your thoughts.
No, but there was Kodak everywhere, when I'm halfway around the world. So they were too big to fail. But the other thing, and this evokes Clayton Christensen and the Innovator's Dilemma, was they were making too much money.
Oh, interesting.
And so here's the thing. You have a business line that makes money and one that doesn't make money, and things get tough. You double down on the one that makes money.
Yeah, true.
And to close a business line that makes money, or to take resources away to one that's risky, is a very, very hard decision to make. That's the Innovator's Dilemma. And they were a classic example of not being able to break through that. And so they rode that cash cow right into the grave.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? That's an important story. I like that. Not that I cheer for any.
No. But we got to learn from these things, right? So in the Intel example, the Crux moment we actually have recorded, right? When that single conversation, whereas at Kodak, there's 100 conversations, 1,000 conversations, because it never really happened.
Yeah.
Now I do want to talk about a Crux moment that goes. That's also documented, that kind of goes the other way. And I think I've talked about this a little bit in the podcast, and that's the very public example of a blood testing company called Theranos.
Yes.
Which about 10, 12 years ago probably like 2009 to 2014 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Elizabeth,
Elizabeth,
Elizabeth Holmes.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
right. So here's the crux for them. They have a demo coming up with it might have been Walmart. And there's a Netflix series, there's a podcast, there's books, there's all kinds of stuff. It's documented. Um, but they have a demo coming up and the machine doesn't work.
When did they know?
Well, they knew before the demo.
They knew before the demo it wasn't working.
The machine didn't work. And so they decided to fake it. And then they got caught in that lie. And then they got this got so crazy that they did sell the contract to Walmart for the walk-in blood testing clinic. And they would pick the samples up, run them back to their office, process them on the competitor's machine, get the results, and then run them back and make the charade that the machine that they were showing at their demos was actually working when it wasn't.
Okay, that's fraud.
It is. And that one moment, okay, so this is where Jean Valjean says, I don't know who that guy is.
Right.
Then we don't have a story anymore.
Right.
And an innocent man's punished. In this case, the crux came. It was very obvious. There's one thing to do, which is to say we're not ready. It doesn't work.
But they were afraid of losing their company, which ultimately they did anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So the crux is the decision. And then the climax, in this case, there was 5 more episodes in the Netflix series. And then, the last scene, they're sweeping out the empty office kind of thing.
Yeah, what a shame. But it makes you wonder how many other times a fraud has been chosen as a solution.
Well, actually, I have another example, but I don't have the video, and that was Enron.
Right. I'm thinking Enron myself. Yeah.
And Enron, the challenge was they had these all these projections of all these awesome business results as the company grew by energy contracts.
Right.
Okay. So it's not tangible stuff, but they're buying and selling energy, and it's growing and growing and growing. And then they reached the limit of that, but they've projected to continue growing and growing. So the crux,
to keep telling everybody that we're growing and growing and growing.
That's right. And that's where the chief financial officer got creative and figured out a way to make it look like they were growing and growing when they absolutely weren't. And so there's crux moments where the ones in literature, hopefully, where we want a good result. In real life, a lot of ones, we don't know about.
Right.
And most of the time, it's the moment doesn't realize the tension is unresolved.
So we all live in unresolved tension.
Yeah, but there's a time, for example, Andy Grove and Gordon Moore, where they say, "Well, we can see where this is going to go. We can fight it and be part of it, or we can completely change all the rules."
Which is a very big decision in of itself. When business decides to take a risk, that's business almost by definition is at its beginning a risk. However, the rest of its existence is risk averse.
Well, and there's one more example I have on that, and we're all familiar with this one, and we all kind of watched it happen, and that was Netflix.
Yeah.
And the original Netflix, it's not the original Netflix model. It's when they went to streaming, because they were still making money mailing DVDs.
Right. I was one of them. I used to get them in the mail.
So they had to figure out, if they were going to put enough time and money into streaming, despite the fact that they were losing money at it and they were making money mailing DVDs.
And that is at this time of that we're discussing things, that at this point in time, streaming is still a very dubious moneymaker for many companies. And even if it's making money, a little bit of money, it's not enough for the big businesses. And so
Absolutely.
it becomes a war of how
Yeah.
much of the pie is there, or is there? Yeah.
And we have to go back in time to understand it, because now, like, I'm sure I'm not the only person that won't walk across the room and find the Blu-ray if
I
it's
know. You're
if it's
absolutely
on
right.
Netflix, right?
I agree with you, Derek. As somebody who took out of all his savings and invested them in the DeLorean and Beta Max,
Yeah.
and then took them out and said, I'm going to take all my savings out again and invest them in Enron. I just want to say how wonderful it is to be seduced by good advertising. And it's hard to know out there what is a lasting breakthrough and what is a fraud.
Well, yeah. So as consumers, yes, it's very hard. But if you think about as management, somebody knows somewhere in there, they know.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about a few different examples. One is it looks fine. It's going to look fine for a long time, but ultimately, this is a very bad business to be in. Moore and Grove said we're going to get out.
We're going to change this entire model.
Change the model. Everyone else kind of stayed in. Elizabeth and Sonny said, we're going to fake it.
Which has to be the wrong idea, wrong conclusion at any time.
Well,
it's just not only a bad business decision, it's immoral.
But if you go back to the this question of, I think you asked me probably last episode, but like, what does this mean to us personally?
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Yeah,
we live in unresolved tension. Doesn't mean we get rid of tension, but you look to the tension for signs. You look for information, and you say, why am I living this way? And you get real about it, and then you say, there's a different way of looking at this.
That's profound. It sounds easy, but it's profound.
So let's go back to Rocky. We love that one. So what did Rocky do? He looked at the problem differently. He just kind of got,
what do I really want?
He got swept into this thing. Now he's this example of, the underdog, and he's going to fight the champion. And
everyone thinks let's just remind people that in the first movie, he is set up against Apollo Creed almost as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody expects him to last more than 2 rounds.
And he's just going along for the ride.
And everybody expects him to be another of Apollo Creed's long list of easy chumps.
And then Rocky figures out what he wants out of this, and he wants to go the distance. And so that means
he not only brings out the best in himself, he also forces Apollo Creed to up his game.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they get the best result possible, and not to mention a movie franchise that goes on forever, right?
Yeah.
But the point is that Rocky did the mental work to figure out what was really happening, and what was possible and what he wanted, and he lined them all up. Grove and Moore did the same thing. We're going to go in that ring. The Japanese memory companies are going to pound us, and it's going to take a long time, and it's going to be really ugly. Do we want that, or do we want to look at it differently? And so that unresolved tension might get resolved, and you will still have tension, but it's tension that's pulling in a direction which you're now clear on. I don't know if I can take this further at this time, because I just learned about this over the past few months. So I'm I have to think about some of my client conversations, but I can tell you one thing, and that is sometimes we've done some work, we're figuring stuff out. I ask a question, and it's kind of like my client's head snaps back, and there's a pause, and then I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we move to a place we haven't been before.
And part of it, not thinking about it that way, is because that way, by that way lies madness.
That's right. That's right.
That way is hard. But we've said before, a crucial crux moment, I made a decision. And part of that I made a decision was I'm going to embrace the hard.
Yeah.
And you've inspired me to that end. I'm really grateful that I learned more about essential dynamics and how it applies to life and business. I'm not so great at business, but I'm pretty good at life, and at least I'm still here. And I think part of the reason is because I made a decision, and one of those decisions was to come back and support my friend, oh Captain, my Captain, Professor Derek Hudson. And it's come to that time again where we have to wrap up and say au revoir to our many listeners. We appreciate all six of you. Please keep writing. And we're hopeful that everybody can follow some of the things we're saying to improve their own lives and business practices. And while they're doing so, please, everybody, consider your quest.